Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Cafe Bagheri. You know I love Sabzee Polow, the Persian herb rice. And we have a couple of videos, in fact, on our channel. And we make that dish quite often around here. So recently, I was watching a risotto video. I'm sure you're familiar with risotto. It's the northern Italian dish made with Arborio rice. I just love the texture, and it goes well with so many things, especially seafood. And so I thought, what if I took the same herbs, same amount and ratio of the herbs that go in Sabzee Polow and put it in risotto? What would it taste like? Oh my God. We love it. I've made it several times the past couple of weeks. You want to stick around and let's make some Sabzee risotto together. First thing we need to do is to clean and prepare our sabzi, the herbs. Most of them are green herbs. It's the same recipe as Sabzee Polow. I'll give you the recipe below. We have some scallions, chives will do. And right here I have some parsley and some cilantro. You can use Italian parsley. For the scallions, the root end, what was in the ground, is going to be cut up and thrown away. And what I do is the white part and the green part, I kind of go in the middle, like so. So it allows me to cut it into smaller pieces. All the pieces of scallion are going to be cut. I kind of go through them like this. And we're gonna go chop them as fine as possible. You just make several passes over your scallions to get them as fine as you can. Now we're gonna do our cilantro. So you're moving your fingers out of the way as your knife comes towards your hand. So this is very critical to get right. All right, so we're gonna go through the parsley the same way and remove some of the thicker stems. Okay, so I've decided this is all the parsley that I'm going to use right there. Parsley, cilantro, and chives, or scallions here. There are two other herbs in the list. That's the dill weed and fenugreek. Dill, I have a lot of dried dill, so I use dry when I can. Fresh dill is also great. Just remember, any of these herbs that you use dry, use half as much. So it's equal amounts of parsley, cilantro, scallion, and dill. Fenugreek is very pungent, so use half or third of the amount of the other herbs when it comes to fenugreek, and you should be fine. So like I said, dill and fenugreek are dry. So I put a little bit of each in there, and then basically just mix them all up. Cup full of my herbs, finely chopped. It's a packed cup, if you will. Now we're going to talk about the onion. Please note that the original Sabzee Polow recipe does not have any onion in the rice mix. So The difference here is with the Sabzee Risotto, because the original Italian base recipe for risotto requires very finely chopped onion, some sort of allium, something from allium family, either scallion, onion, or shallots work. If you have, that's the original. I prefer shallots. I didn't have any today. I have a large onion here, so I cut it in 4 parts, and this is 1/4 of an onion. I'm going to leave the stem side intact so it holds it together. And then it's just a matter of chopping this thing very fine. This next ingredient is used in a lot of risotto recipes. You can skip it if you don't want to. What you do is you get 1 to 3 cloves of garlic, depending on how much garlic you like in your risotto. And then I'm going to use a press, garlic press. If you're fancy with your knife skills and wanna use your knife, you can do that. But I find these garlic presses very dandy for doing this. There you go. This is how much garlic you really need. Sabzee ready, onions ready, and garlic is ready. Before starting to actually cook our risotto, let's go back to the recipe briefly, which is given below. The main ingredients for putting this together is our rice and the broth that we keep simmering throughout the process and get the two to meet each other. So there are some rules here, right? Your first habitual thing, because we're used to cooking Persian rice and we're calling this Sabzee Risotto, do not wash the starch from your rice. Your habit may be to brine the rice or wash it first like you do with all your Persian rices. With risotto, we don't do that. Second thing is, don't use your basmati or jasmine or the rice that you use for Persian cooking. We use Arborio, which is a kind of a stocky, short grain rice, but it's got a lot of starch. And the reason we use this kind of rice is because we need that extra creaminess in the final dish. The last and maybe most important rule for risotto is be patient. It's gonna take time. You're gonna have to do a lot of stirring and slowly add in the simmering hot broth. Don't add any cold broth. Make sure it's hot broth. That's why you see I have a pot on low simmering, and I have about 5.5 cups of chicken broth. You can use beef broth, you can use vegetable broth, or just hot water in a pinch. If you don't have any stock or broth, you can use hot water and make risotto, and it's gonna be just fine. So on medium-high, we're going to use a thick skillet or a pot. A lot of people make risotto in a big pot. For the recipe I give you, which is about 1.5 cups of rice, Arborio rice, we're gonna use this large fancy skillet that I have. It's non-stick. So our skillet's now on medium-high. We're gonna put about 1 tablespoon of olive oil in here, and then make sure it coats your skillet all over, and let it heat up a little bit. Once it starts shimmering, you will put the finely diced onions in there. You can hear a little sizzle that confirms that the temperature was right, long enough that they become translucent. On medium-high, that's about a couple of minutes. About a minute or so into it, I'm gonna add the little bit of garlic that I have. Just make sure the garlic is distributed and mixed into the onion. This is when I introduce the Arborio rice to the cooking onions right here. I'm going to mix this well, stir it so that the onion and rice get mixed. And all of the rice grains in this 1.5 cup that I put in here, I want all of them to be coated with that olive oil that I had in the pan. This is about 5 tablespoons of dry white wine. 5 tablespoons happens to be 1/3 of a cup, whichever it's in the recipe. And so, you hear that? Now here on out, here's a big trick. That's why you shouldn't walk away from this. Whatever liquid we put in here, we should continue stirring until the rice grains have absorbed the said liquid. And we do this in installments. We slowly add liquid to the rice and stir and let the rice kind of absorb and drink that liquid. So I want to use my fancy ladle here. This guy holds about a little less than 1/3 of a cup, which is fine because we don't want to add too much liquid in each installment. We just want to do about 1/3 of a cup or less. Look at that. Slowly, and then put that back in there and go to town stirring. That helps all the rice grains in your skillet to consume and drink that liquid in equal amounts. So they're sharing and absorbing that liquid all together. Once you see that liquid disappeared, which is where we are right now, you're gonna do the second installment. The process continues. Somewhere after the first or second addition of broth to your rice is when you introduce sabzee to this recipe. This is where standard risotto starts becoming Sabzee Risotto. Check this out. See, look here, there's still water. I don't want to add yet because if I add more liquid, what was in here already wouldn't have a chance to absorb. So keep stirring. Now I'm going to go on medium. After second, third, and right before I add the sabzee, I'm going to go down to about medium. It's no longer medium high. There you go. So we're going to add another ladle of the goodness and all of our sabzee. Doesn't it look like Sabzee Polow? So it's Sabzee Risotto. Let me see. Yeah, it's time to add some more liquid. Push it around. Make sure it gets everywhere. The recipe feeds on average about 4 servings. Again, depending on how you want to serve it. Is it a main dish with meats? Is it a side dish as a starch with something else? So on average, my experience on my stove takes between 17, 18 to 21 minutes for this process to finish. Now at some point, the liquid will start not disappearing. That means the rice grains have had enough of the broth soaked into them, and that's when you stop. However, there's an important point. You should not cook the rice long enough for it to become mushy. You need to have some hard centers, which means al dente, as they call it. Same concept as your pasta. When you're cooking, you should cook the pasta in hot water until it's al dente, because when you add everything else to it, it's going to continue cooking. So there's a kind of a sweet spot of when you stop cooking your starch. Same thing is true for risotto. It's one of the more important aspects of cooking risotto is when to stop. All right, about halfway through our 18-20 minutes, I start tasting. It's still not there. It's still too hard in the center. We're not at al dente. So here's what I'm gonna do. I will put liquid, as you can see, and make sure it's leveled, and I'll let it cook to kind of get it towards where I'm going. Not too long. You don't want it to be mushy. See, right here, the gooey connective mass that I want is starting to form. That's what you're looking for. So let's go. But it's still absorbing, so that means we have room to go. Okay, do some stirring and let it cook for another minute. Add some more liquid. We're almost done here. Let me do one more test. We have a little bit of liquid left. I need a little more liquid in it to be able to move to the next phase. So I'm going to use the last of my broth and let it take another minute, minute and a half to soak some more liquid in to add to that final gooiness. See, right here, when you do this, go through the risotto, it should come back together. The path behind you should start closing in. That's when you know you're pretty much there. And of course, testing this one more time. Don't burn yourself when you do this. This is perfect. You turn off the heat and give it one more stir. What is our habit at the end of cooking before you serve your food? You usually adjust salt and pepper. Because we're going to be adding some Parmesan cheese, and cheese has some salt, and we had the beef broth or chicken broth that has some umami added to the food, we're not going to add any salt to this dish. I have about a tablespoon or two of butter, and this is an homage to the fusion we did. I like the taste of butter in our Persian rice, and the Sabzee part of this fusion would need the butter, although a lot of risotto, Italian risotto recipes do have the butter in it, just a little nugget of butter before you add cheese. Okay, so this, and then we're gonna add the cheese and mix it all up. This cheese melting with that risotto will give you the final signature texture that you expect from your risotto. In order to finish this in Persian style, we're gonna get a little bowl and get some of this risotto in it. And I'm gonna add a little bit of saffron solution, maybe half to 1 tablespoon right here. This would be akin to putting that saffron rice on the top of your Persian rice or Sabzee Polow, whatever you're cooking. Here. Okay, here we have it. Here's your Sabzee Risotto, a perfect fusion of Persian herbs that we put in Sabzee Polow with an Italian traditional recipe for risotto. You can use this as a base or side for any grilled seafood, shrimp, salmon, trout, anything that you would serve with Sabzee Polow, you can serve with this. In fact, lamb shank, braised lamb shank that we have in our video goes perfectly well with this. The recipe I'm giving you is for 4 servings. This is a little more than a quarter of that recipe. It's almost close to half of it, but I love my risotto, right? And I have some leftover kebab from before that I'm gonna eat with this. I hope you like this. I want you to cook this. This is awesome. And then have your own stuff. Chop other things, other herbs that you like, basil, mint if you like it, and spinach goes well in this. So play with this, and please tag me on your posts on Instagram. Our address is at Cafe Bagheri on Instagram, or just send me your pictures in direct message. I would like to see them. Also, if you liked what you saw tonight, please like below, share this video with your friends and family on social media. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I appreciate you subscribing right now, and hit that little bell button so we can keep in touch. And we have a lot of new videos in the pipeline, and I think you're gonna love them. You'll receive notifications when they're ready to be released. Thanks again, and come back very, very soon right here at Cafe Bagheri, and let's cook some delicious stuff together again.